The Senate will come to order. Leading us in prayer today is the Reverend Mercy Hobbs of Trinity Episcopal Church in Pierre. Following the prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the Senate page of the day, Levi Atkins from Willow Lake High School.
Let us pray. God of compassion and courage, we give you thanks for being here another day in which to represent and serve the needs of the constituents which elected these men and women here present. We pray that these senators honor the promises they have made with grace and compassion and integrity, always remembering those who are in need in the decisions they make. Above all, that these elected officials will be led by vision in what is just and right, placing you first, gracious God, in all that they do and say. All this we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Rolls, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Billhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, and Zickman. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Approval of the journal.
Mr. President, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Secretary of the Senate has had under consideration the Senate Journal of the 25th day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction, and we hereby move adoption of the report. Submitted, Chris Carr, Chair.
Is there a second? That has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. Is the doctor of the day here? That's you. Stand up. I'm going to ask you to help me recognize the doctor of the day at this time. The doctor of the day today is Dr. Ian Jensen, a family medicine resident at the Center for Family Medicine in Pierre. Dr. Jensen earned his medical degree from Saba University School of Medicine. He is a member of the State Medical Association. Let's thank him for helping us out today. All right, if the pages would come forward at this time, we got to get you guys sworn in. We can't have unofficial pages. All right, we got everybody? Got everybody? All right.
No, we're missing.
We're missing two. Here she comes. Here she is. All right. All right, raise your right hands. They got it all right again. Very good. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Senate Page according to the best of my ability. All right, they're official. Let's give them a round of applause. Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, up to the back of the chamber here, we have 10 outstanding undergraduate students from South Dakota colleges and universities. They are here in the Capitol today to demonstrate firsthand the important connection between research and higher education. These students set up their research posters in the Capitol Rotunda earlier today to share the results of the research efforts with you. And I'm sure all of you that did go down to see them really understand exactly what they were talking about. They are the best of the best among South Dakota's researchers from public, private, and tribal universities across South Dakota. And also we need to thank the Board of Regents for bringing along SDSU ice cream. So if you go ahead and welcome these 10 outstanding undergraduate students to the Senate.
Welcome. Stand up. Senator Reed told me he learned all about dark energy and will explain it to us later. So that's good. Senator Hulse.
Thank you, Mr. President. Personal privilege, please.
Granted.
Thank you. Well, one of the people who taught these fabulous young students and had me as a former student is also in the gallery today. Her name is Dr. Julia Hellwig, and she is a political science professor at the University of South Dakota and the director of the Cheesman Center for Democracy that does a lot of polling and other studies about politics in South Dakota here. So give her a round of applause and thank her for being here.
Welcome. Communications.
Mr. President and members of the Senate, I have the honor to inform you that on February 23rd, 2026, I approved Senate Bills 54 and 91, and the same have been deposited in the Office of the Secretary of State. Respectfully, Larry Roden, Governor.
Reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Appropriations reports that it has had the following under consideration and returns us with the following recommendations. Senate Bills 74, 106, 120, and 121 do pass. Senate Bills 102, 119, and 222 be amended and do pass. Senate Bills 210 and 225 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. Submitted, Ernie Otten, Chair. Also, Mr. President, the Committee on Senate Health and Human Services reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the following. House Bills 1104, 1143, and 1146 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. Submitted, Kevin Jensen, Chair. Also, Mr. President, the Committee on Senate State Affairs reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the same with the following recommendations. Senate Bill 172 was tabled. Senate Bills 244 and 245 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. Senate Joint Resolution 505 and 507 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. Senate Joint Resolution 508 do pass. Submitted, Jim Melhoff, Chair. The Committee on Senate Taxation reports it has had the following under consideration and returns the following recommendations. Senate Bill 216 was deferred to the 41st legislative day. Senate Bill 196 do pass. House Bills 1233 and 1260 do pass, and having been certified uncontested, be placed on the consent calendar. Submitted, Sue Peterson, Chair. And finally, the Committee on Legislative Procedure reports that the Office of Engrossing and Enrolling has carefully compared Senate Bills 20, 27, 55, 72, 75, 116, 129, and 165, and finds them correctly enrolled. Submitted, Chris Carr, Chair.
Messages.
Mr. President, I have the honor to return Senate Bill 3, which has been amended by the House, and your concurrence in the amendment is requested. Also, I have the honor to return Senate Bills 20, 27, 55, 72, 75, 116, 129, and 165, which have all passed the House without change. And finally, I have the honor to transmit House Bills 1017, 1045, 1275, 1292, 1299, and 1323, which have all passed the House, and your favorable consideration is requested. Respectfully, Patricia Miller, Chief Clerk.
Motions and resolutions.
Senator Melhoff moves that when we adjourn today, we adjourn to convene at 1:30 p.m. on Tuesday, February 24th, 2026, the 28th legislative day.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries.
Senator Melhoff moves that Senate Bill 159 be deferred to Tuesday, February 24th, 2026, the 28th legislative day.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries.
On Friday, Senator Crabtree announced his intention to reconsider the vote by which Senate Bill 193 lost. And actually, I think it was not Friday, it was the previous Friday. Senator Crabtree now moves that the Senate do reconsider the vote by which Senate Bill 193 lost.
That has been moved by Senator Crabtree and seconded to reconsider the vote by which Senate Bill 193 lost. Are there any remarks? Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the body. I would really appreciate the opportunity to debate what is an amendment that is coming forward on 193. So I would appreciate your positive consideration of the reconsideration. There's still discussions going on out in the hallway exactly what that amendment will look like, but I promise it'll address the issues that were brought up on the floor, whichever Friday that would have been, Peggy. So thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on the motion? Seeing no further remarks, this is a roll call vote. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc. No. Carly. No. Crabtree. Davis. Aye. Dibert. Aye. Duhamel. Aye. Foster. No. Grove. No. Hone. No. Howard. No. Hulse. Aye. Jensen. No. Carr. No. Kolbeck. Lapke. No. Larson. Aye. Marty. No. Melhoff. Aye. Miskimmons. Aye. Nelson. No. Otten. No. Perry. No. Peterson. No. Pischke. No. Reed. Aye. Roll. Aye. Sauter. Aye. Shanefish. Aye. Smith. Vilhauer? Aye. Voigt? No. Voida? No. Whip? Aye. Zickman? Aye. Mr. President, we have 17 yeas and 17 nays.
President votes aye.
Making it 18 yeas, 17 nays.
So that motion having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the motion carried.
Senator Crabtree moves that Senate Bill 193 be placed on today's calendar to follow Senate Bill 239.
That's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that amendment or on that motion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries.
Senator Carr moves that Senate Bill 76 be placed to follow Senate Bill 193 on today's calendar.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. That carries.
Senator Howard moves that the Committee on State Affairs be instructed to deliver SJR 505 to the floor of the Senate pursuant to Joint Rule 7-7.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Senator Howard and seconded that the Committee on State Affairs be instructed to deliver SJR 505 to the floor pursuant to Joint Rule 7-7, which is the smokeout rule. Are there any remarks, Senator Howard?
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I don't want to veer too far off and get into trouble, but I will say it was a very close vote, and I believe this is an important enough topic that the whole body should have this discussion. So I'd appreciate your support.
Thank you. Further remarks on that motion? Further remarks? Seeing none, is she supported? She is not.
11.
Still not. Consideration of committee reports.
Senator Melhoff moves that the reports of the Standing Committee on Health and Human Services on Senate Bills 211 and 221, and the Committee on State Affairs on Senate Bill 133, and the Committee on Taxation on Senate Bill 228, and the Committee on Transportation on House Bill 1188 all be adopted.
That has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Carries. First reading of Senate bills.
The President declared that Senate Bill 215 was withdrawn at the request of the prime sponsor pursuant to JR 6B-1.1.
First reading of House bills.
House Bill 1017, permit the board of a school district to require that certain students receive instruction in alternative settings. House Bill 1045, revise certain provisions related to child support. House Bill 1275, create requirements for age verification and parental consent for application stores and to provide a penalty therefor. House Bill 1292, limit the ability of a health carrier to recoup, recover, or retroactively deny previously paid claims. House Bill 1299, permit the use of biological filtration systems in water recreational facilities located in certain lodging establishments. And finally, House Bill 1223, amend the time required for filing a petition referring an ordinance or resolution of a political subdivision.
The President Pro Tem has made the following committee assignments: to Senate Education, House Bill 1017, to Senate Health and Human Services, House Bill 1292 and 1299, to Senate Judiciary, House Bill 1045, and to Senate State Affairs, House Bills 1275 and 1323. And we are up to the consent calendar. Oh, Senator Larson.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Today, we had our morning coffee and snacks provided by the South Dakota Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Please stand up. This is a group representing more than 300 registered dietitians and nutrition professionals. With them is a cohort of SDSU nutrition students at the Capitol today. Registered dietitians provide medical nutrition therapy and strive to improve public health through initiatives like food and medicine. Today, they wear orange ribbons for hunger awareness to show support for strategies that improve nutrition security in our state. Please welcome them to the Senate.
Welcome. Senator Billhauer.
It's a privilege.
Granted.
I see a couple friendly faces from Watertown. I'd like to welcome Scott and Sharice Jensen to the gallery. Let's welcome them.
Welcome to the Senate. Now we're up to the consent calendar.
Today on consent, we have one bill, House Bill 1189, establish a greater tire weight limit for a mobile crane moving on any highway in this state.
Items on the consent calendar were reported out of committee with no dissenting votes and are not subject to debate. Only questions for clarification purposes are appropriate. There will be one vote taken for all bills on the consent calendar. Are there any questions at this time? Seeing none, the question before the Senate is, shall the items on the consent calendar pass? As your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman. Mr. President, we have 34 yeas, 1 excused.
So the items on the consent calendar having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the consent calendar items passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. We are on the debate calendar, Senate reading of Senate bills.
Senate Bill 96, an act to authorize the imposition of a county option gross receipts tax to reduce owner-occupied property taxes.
Senate Bill 96, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Otten.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, today we're going to be talking about a bill that is going to principally help a lot of our counties. And I looked up on looked up in the dictionary solution, and it's principally it means that a solving of a problem of dealing with a difficult situation. And I submit to you, but that is SB 96. During our legislative, I guess, tour or our study on this thing, and we were looking for property tax reform, found out real quick that South Dakota is a very diverse state. Many parts of the state, they're not affected by any of this. And then there are parts of the state that are greatly affected by this. So let me first walk through exactly what the bill is going to do. First, it's going to principally enable the counties to be able to raise a half cent. County commissioners are going to be making these decisions. You know my feelings on on a lot of this. They're elected officials and they need to be brought into the mix. Secondly, you'll find in the bill that there's a place where the people of the county can say yes or no. They might agree with them and say, no, we're not going to do this. County officials could say, no, we're not going to do this, and the people say, oh, yes, we are going to do this. That's good legislation. The next thing that's going to end up happening is our Department of Revenue is going to be taking these funds, and at the end of the year, they're going to be sending it back to the county and telling the county exactly how much we've raised. That is then divided out among the houses, the owner-occupied in the county. Fair enough system. One thing that I found unique about this, because a lot of this debate goes back to, if you remember the deal on schools and, of course, gambling. And people say, well, you know, I thought that was supposed to take care of it. Well, this is going to actually come out on your statement every year that you get from your county officials, listing all the different bonds that you've got out there, and it's actually going to say on there for property tax relief and the amount of money that it is. So we've solved that problem. People are transparent, people are notified. So we've knocked that all out of the ballpark. So let's go back then to why a half cent. And you've all got this average owner-occupied tax on it, and I would ask you to take a peek at that. And this is clearly going to start to show you that there's only a problem in a few counties. I will submit to you that Pennington, Minnehaha, and Lincoln, Lincoln especially is taking the biggest hit on this. But those are the economic dynamos of the state, especially the Sioux Falls area. I would submit to you that the Sioux Falls area, when we catch a cold, the rest of the state catches pneumonia. And so, as we start looking at this across the state and people yelling that, you know, we want property tax relief, I'm the first one that can tell you I would like it myself. Over the last 5 years, our property taxes in Lincoln County has gone up 46%, $1,600. I talked to you about Aunt Agnes and Uncle Ned. How do they make up that kind of a difference on Social Security? They need a little help. And while many of you this may not affect, you'll never see it, your county commissioners enact anything, there are areas of the state are desperately needing your help. And again, going back to Webster, a solution means solving a problem of dealing with a difficult situation. And so that is what I present to you at this moment, a solution. And I'll let others jump into the fray.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96? Senator Hone.
Mr. President, I have an amendment.
Is it Amendment 96A?
It's 96D as in Delta.
96D is in Delta. It has been moved and seconded, and it has been distributed, and you wish to speak to it at this time.
Please.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we had 96, Senate Bill 96 in Taxation Committee, and during discussion in the committee, it came up about the counties are going to have to implement ordinances in order to enact this legislation. And if they do enact an ordinance, and they have the option, they don't have to, but if they do, the concern is that if the emergency clause was in there, then the voters could not have a choice in whether or not they wanted this tax increase. And so this amendment here is basically stating that the emergency clause cannot be added into the ordinance in order we want the voters to have a choice and have a say on this. And so that's the reason for the amendment.
All right, thank you. Further remarks on the Hone motion to amend? Senator Otten.
I would consider this extremely friendly.
Further remarks on the amendment? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That carries. We are back now on the bill. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96. Further remarks. Senator Roll.
I would move 96C as in cat.
You have moved 96C, and it has been seconded, and it's been distributed or posted. And do you wish to speak to it at this time?
I do, thank you. Well, this builds off the former senator's amendment, but instead of the emergency clause, it's essentially saying that if a county commission wanted to approve this particular tax increase, that it would automatically be referred to the actual voters of that district. Obviously, we know that tax increases in this building require 2/3, and obviously this is taking a slightly different path, and I think if we're going to do that, we should make sure it's something those citizens actually want.
All right, further remarks on the Roll amendment. Senator Otten.
I would consider this exceptionally negative.
All right, further remarks on the Roll amendment. Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. We'll do a division. If you support the amendment, stand. If you oppose it, stand. Looks like the amendment fails. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I know some people listening may be surprised to hear that I do plan on voting in favor of this, but not without having my say. I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy that we're going to go back to our citizens and say probably the only way that we're going to get property tax relief this year is through a new tax. And I do find that abhorrent. I wish that there had been spending cuts offered along with this, alongside of this. And then on top of that, this is being passed with a simple majority. It should have been a 2/3. It is a new tax. But I understand by the rules, it didn't require a 2/3. I have numerous concerns about this. It is just going into statute. Last year, we passed 216. We saw already that this year with 97, we came back and tried to undo a lot of what was in statute. You know, we say that 100% of this is going to go to property tax relief. Well, nothing would stop us from coming back next year and saying, well, actually, you know, we're going to bump it up to a penny, and then half of it will go to property tax relief, and the other half will go to pay for county essential services. So I do have some concerns. However, I come from a district where people are struggling, which is also why I wanted to debate other property tax relief options. But when you have assessed values going up by 38% in 1 year, taxes going up by 40% in 4 years, something has to be done. And I think there's other ways that we could help everyone. I do not believe this is the only way that we could help people with property taxes. And you know the saying, death by 1,000 cuts. I believe people go broke by 1,000 taxes. And this is just one more tax to add on to that. We're going to have a municipal sales tax, and a state sales tax, and a county sales tax, and a tourism tax. And you name it, we could go on and on and on. Meanwhile, the real drivers of rising property taxes, which are skyrocketing assessed values and spending growth, are not being addressed by this. We're not capping valuation growth. We're not restraining budgets. We're simply broadening the tax base, or rather, in some sense, taking more from the very people who need relief. Now, I am supporting this, though, because at least in my county, part of the relief will come from the tourists. They will be paying for part of this. But I want this body to realize the system itself is broken, and throwing more money at the system is not going to fix it. So I am supporting this, but I hope we come back next year and figure out a way to fix the system, turn it on its head. Let's provide long-lasting relief without just throwing more money at the issue.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I would like to thank my good friend from Pennington County for the most interesting proponent testimony I think I've ever heard. So I think she makes some good points, and I think that's why I've always said in this property tax debate, there's no silver bullet. There's no perfect bill. And we have any number of solutions we need to consider. I think this is one of them. I think this sets a foundation, and we can build on this. Is it perfect? No. Are my bills perfect? Well, maybe, but no. There are no perfect bills. So I just encourage you to support this. I think it's one piece of the puzzle. I think it sort of threads the needle in all sorts of different ways. And it's optional. It's not technically a tax increase. It leaves it to the local counties to decide if they want to implement this. So I am supporting this, and I ask you to support it as well.
Further remarks on Senate Bill 96, Senator Pischke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment. It's 96E.
Amendment 96E has been moved and seconded, and has it been distributed?
It has, sir.
And do you wish to speak to it at this time?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, 96E is an idea that's consistent with what we have here in the legislature. It basically states that when this idea would be referred to the people or would even be initiated by the people, it has to meet the 60% threshold. As you guys know, here in the Capitol, to get a tax increase passed, it's a 2/3 threshold in both chambers. It's a very high threshold, and that has been a good idea to protecting taxpayers from tax increases in this institution for a long, long time. So this idea comes forward so that these tax increases that might be proposed at the county level, it has to meet a higher threshold than just 50% plus one of the voters that show up. So I'm putting that idea forward for you guys' consideration. I would appreciate your support.
Thank you. Further remarks on the Pischke motion to amend, Senator Otten.
I also consider this very unfriendly.
All right. Further remarks on the motion, Senator Voida.
Question for the sponsor of the amendment.
State your question.
If this amendment is applied, will it work with the amendment we just previously adopted?
Senator Pischke, do you wish to respond to that question?
Yes, I'd like to, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Yes, it should work just fine. Because of the amendment that we applied before, that would allow for anything that's approved by the county commissions to be referred to the people, and then if that happens, then you would take a 60% threshold to actually pass that increase at the county level. So yes, it would work in coherent.
Further remarks, Senator Voida? No. Further remarks on the Pischke motion to amend, Senator Nelson.
Just really want to thank you, Mr. President. Just want to remind you, if schools want to increase your taxes, it's a 60% threshold. So whatever's good for schools, I think should be good for our counties as well. Thank you.
All right. Further remarks on the Pischke motion? Seeing no further remarks, this is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. We'll do a division. If you're in favor, stand. Getting the workout here today. If you're opposed, stand. Motion fails. We are back on the bill. Just a minute. We're back on the bill. Senate Bill 96. Further remarks? Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I look at the map here, and Watertown, Cottington County is not one that would benefit greatly from this. but I will say it's about time that we do this. For the last 10 years or more, our county tried to bring this forward to these bodies to build a jail, an optional half-cent sales tax. It consistently got turned down. Very disappointed back at the county level. I like this. It puts it in the hands of our county, of our commissioners, and our people. I would ask for your support on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96, Senator Dibert.
There we go. So I stand in support of this bill. You know, we need many, many tools for tax relief, property tax relief, and this is just one of them. To give you an idea, in my district, we have more visits now to Deadwood than we do to Mount Rushmore. That school district in my district gets no state funding. I know this doesn't give relief to the school district tax formula, but it gives tax relief. So I think the option in my district is good. I'll also say that my district has the highest percentage of public lands. The PILT payment does not help the county to the extent that having structures in that area would have. So my point is, all 66 counties are different. They can choose to use this or not to their own needs, and it's one tool in a toolbox. So I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96, Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, just numbers first, and that would be, right now we pay in 2025 in Brown County a levy of $3,868, and that was based on a $325,000 property, and it's a total of $5,332. And basically our estimated dollar savings on that $325,000 home is $956. Projected percent of savings is 18%. Long story short, a lot of people are talking about property tax relief. This is a way that we can at least move forward. I would say we should endorse this wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96. Senator Jensen.
Question for the sponsor, please.
State your question.
Does this do anything to get to the root problem of ever-increasing assessments?
Senator Otten, do you wish to respond to that question?
I would. Well, we're into supply and demand. And when you're looking at, I'm just looking at Lincoln County at this moment, when you have such hyper growth, and we're going to be snapping into really hyper growth here in about 2 years with completion of a couple properties, or a couple, the 85th Street Bridge and 100 wrapping around. It's going to open up some of the biggest development that South Dakota's ever seen. But the good news on it is, most of that is going to be, a lot of it is going to be commercial. And that is what Lincoln County desperately needs. The only way that you can solve this problem is to stop roofs from being built. And roofs generate munchkins, and munchkins have to be educated. And so the process starts all over again. But commercial, on the other hand, well, we get to tax that. And they don't create munchkins, they just create jobs for people. So that's my short answer.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Jensen?
I struggle with this because it feels like we're putting a Band-Aid on the problem and we're not really getting to the core root of the problem. So reluctantly, I'm going to vote no because I know the people in my community, they want tax relief, but I don't think they want an increased tax when we're not getting to the core root problem. So thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96. Senator Blanc.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I just want to say thank you to the governor's team who made great effort to meet with myself and others who had some honest questions about SB 96. And I think I could speak for most of us here that we don't like tax increases, yet as Senator Otten had mentioned, this is and does bring a solution that actually brings some actual property tax relief. Maybe not for every county, but definitely for many counties. What I liked about this bill is that it's optional. If it's good for your county, if it's good for your district, you can opt in. If it's not good, then you don't have to be a part of it. The other options that I liked is that it's up to 0.5%. You can, based on the county, they can lower that if they desire. What else I like about this bill is that it does capture revenue from the tourists that are constantly coming into our state. And I am voted in by a district that will benefit from this tax bill. I believe the numbers were between 18 and 22%. And on a $350,000 home, that was almost $900 of tax relief. And for those reasons, I will be voting yes on SB 96.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96? Senator Hulse.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I'll be brief. I just wanted to speak to some of the comments of the prior speaker before the good senator from the Rapid City area. As the queen of trying to suppress assessments going up, I understand his concern, but I brought that bill. We were there. I would say we've been there, done that, bought that t-shirt. We all voted for that, and it didn't go through the House last year. We tried that, and it failed. So here we are, back again, trying to provide property tax relief in the most meaningful way possible. I don't love this either because it's targeted towards counties, and I don't really think counties are necessarily the problem of where most of the increases have come from, but it's the easiest way to provide direct relief. And every time I hit a pothole or every time I'm driving down a gravel road and hit washboards, I think about this bill, even on my way here this morning. This is not a tax increase. It's a net decrease in your overall tax burden, because while you may be paying more in sales tax, you'll pay less overall in taxes. And so to me, as someone who represents the Black Hills, where we have some of the highest property taxes in the state, I appreciate the governor coming back and trying again to try to bring some kind of relief. And I hope we're still not done, but this is a good step in the right direction.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96? Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I have had a serious change of mind and heart. As I'm watching and I'm listening and I'm seeing this map laid out before me, I'm looking at my little counties of Buffalo and Brule and Lyman and Jones and Millette and Todd and a little bit of Hughes and a little bit of Hyde. And I'm thinking, we're the ones that are getting the tax increase. You might not be, but we will be. And sadly, we killed that 4.2% where we were going to take away the sunset. So not only will we be paying a half-cent more, we're also going to be paying more, just for going up to 4.5. So my little communities that, you know, we're already struggling, now when we, because we don't have an option, come to your big cities, we are going to be helping pay your taxes. And although I think we are a very generous people in the middle of South Dakota, I don't know if we want to be that generous. And so I am going to have to vote no, and I just think that's what's best for my district, and I think maybe there's just a better way coming, so thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96? Any further? Senator Pischke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to get up before the prime sponsor talked in closing. No, we're making some comments here about how this is effective to your specific district and the people that send you, and that's good. You know, you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to come here and represent the people that sent you here. That's great. And so, from my perspective, I have quite the quandary here. Whereas I have some really high property taxes in Minnehaha County, where I reside, but yet I represent Moody County, which isn't ruby red on this map, And a lot of those people that live in Moody County, they travel to Sioux Falls for their work and spend money in Minnehaha County and all that. So in essence, half my district is up there and half my district is in Minnehaha. And half the people, Moody County is going to be coming down and paying money to lower my property taxes. Well, thank you. That sounds great from a selfish perspective, but that's not really good tax policy. And so I'm really struggling here. I mean, because I got half of my constituents that want property tax relief and another portion of my district that's, why would we subsidize, right? Another thing that hasn't been talked about here is the idea that people who rent aren't going to get anything here. They're going to pay just higher taxes. And I really struggle with that as well. So I think that there's good things about this and there's bad things about this, but we really need to wrestle with the idea, is this good tax policy? And so when you're making your vote, think about these things. Think about people subsidizing other parts of the area, like the good senator from all these different counties in the middle of the state. She's subsidizing, people come all the way from her area to come to Sioux Falls to go to the doctor, and we're spending money at Costco, spending money at the big box stores, and that money's coming to me for my property tax relief. Thank you very much. But is that good tax policy? So I want you to think about that before you cast your vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Voigt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's a perspective thing. We've been bleeding heavily in this state regarding this issue. This certainly isn't going to cause us to reflect upon the past and say we've got a scar. We've got a situation here where we stop the bleeding, seriously, stop the bleeding. We need to continue to address this, but in the meantime, we have stopped the bleeding. It isn't an answer to everything we want, but we're taking care of our constituents, and we've started that process. I'm going to support this bill.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96. Senator Reed.
I think in the discussions around whether one area pays another area's sales tax has been happening ever since. I mean, we all in our communities are trying to compete for that sales tax dollar. We all try to get the different stores to come in because we know we can attract somebody in. And so I just don't think that's necessarily a good argument against this.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96. Senator Hone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, when I was discussing this with the good commissioner and secretary about the Amendment D that we adopted, I think we're all concerned about transparency, and they gave me and a few other senators their word that they would go to the counties, help advertise, hold meetings, and educate the voters on this. And so I just wanted to add that so you were aware of it before your vote.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 96. Senator Otten in closing.
Well, I thank you for the debate. Let's go back to, is it fair? The question then lies, what are the property taxes? What do they pay for? Well, they pay for your roads in the community, pay for law enforcement, sewer, water. So let's now ask the question, if in some of these small areas, people come into the town, you're driving on their roads that they've paid for. You're driving on, well, after you get there, maybe you want to go have a movie or go have a bite to eat or whatnot. Now you're drinking their water that they paid for. You might even use the facilities. They paid for that. So I think that is kind of a red herring to me. So as we shift and we begin to look at this on the, going back to the assessment end, when all this started about 8 years ago, the upbeat in it, a lot of these homes that are $325,000 now, back then were maybe $250,000, maybe $200,000. So they have benefited in the assessments as they have been driven up. Now, of course, they're not going to be buying and selling and all this other stuff, but there are certain things in an open economy that we just cannot control. One of it is buying and selling property. When you've got so many people influxing into South Dakota, there's going to be a causal effect of that. Now, I would love to be able to get a piece of legislation right now, and we'll go back to my little Mayberry. I would love it, and Aunt Agnes and Uncle Ned, they would love it too. Yeah, they really would. But we don't need to belabor this anymore. I do present to you a solution to a very difficult problem, and that is 96. And I'll also tell you a little secret because nobody's listening right now. The governor will sign this. Think about that one.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 96. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed, nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman, Foster, Foster votes no. Pischke? Mr. President, we have Jensen votes
no.
Jensen votes no. Mr. President, we have 20 yeas, 14 nays, 1 excused.
So Senate Bill 96, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it is deemed correct.
Senate Bill 124, an act to temporarily prohibit the manufacture, sale, and distribution of any product containing cell-cultured protein and to provide a penalty therefor.
Senate Bill 124, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Voida.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, members of the Senate, it is my pleasure to bring you Senate Bill 124. With the help of the governor, after the veto of House Bill 1077, we got together and we came up with this bill as kind of a middle ground, if you will. The bill has been amended to now propose a 5-year moratorium on cell-cultivated protein. And, you know, we've talked about this at length for the last two sessions, so I'm not going to beat the dead horse per se, but I just want to remind you all that why are we doing this? Why is this important to so many South Dakotans? Well, first of all, you can go right on the FDA's website. You can pull up their cell culture consultation tabs, and you can find 4 companies that have completed this process. And I encourage you to just scroll through those and educate yourself on what that process is. I'm going to pick on one of them. I just randomly picked one and was reading through it before this went to committee. And within their consultation, on page 4, the word proprietary is used twice in the very first paragraph. Reading further into the submission, there are words like cell fattening reagents, coating reagents, harvesting reagents, and on and on. These are all proprietary chemicals that the public is not privy to having this information. You know, we are an egg state, and everybody knows that traditional beef, before it can be deemed fit for human consumption, they have withdrawal periods when you use antibiotics and other medications before that animal is slaughtered for human consumption, and for good reason. It's for safety, right? Well, also in this consultation, when you read further down, you're going to find that the company states to prevent microbial contamination, antimicrobial reagents, including antibiotics and antifungals, are used during cell banking. Well, how do we know that that stuff's safe? And I'm going to submit to you that we don't. This consultation was done in 2022. There's been no long-term testing, and I think that it is appropriate for us as South Dakotans to say, I think we need to hit the pause button. We need more research. We need more long-term studies on the effects of the human body when ingesting this fake meat. You know, there's also studies that show that the allergies that people have to this fake meat are much different than the culture or the traditional real beef. So I just encourage you all to support this bill. I want to thank the governor for being willing to at least work with us a little bit, and I hope the body will support that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 124. Senator Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Welcome back, everyone. We're back for another bite at the apple. I do want to thank the prime sponsor for bringing her side to the table on this issue and working out what I think is a pretty amenable compromise. Also, thanks to the governor and his staff for providing leadership on this. I think up in committee last week, we had a very constructive time speaking about this, and I'm really proud of the way that we do things on our side of the rotunda. I don't love everything about it, but that it's a compromise, and that's exactly why I'm going to be voting for it. I hope you join me. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 124. Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very simply, this is a good idea. The moratorium is a good idea. The group that worked on this really did well. And basically, it goes back to the old Wendy's commercial, I think it was. Where's the beef? It's going to be in South Dakota for the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 124. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 124. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson. Marty. Melhoff. Miskimmons. Nelson. Otten. Perry. Peterson. Pischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Billhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Sickmund. Mr. President, we have 29 yeas, 5 nays, 1 excused.
So, Senate Bill 124, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it is deemed correct.
Senate Bill 134, an act to restrict deference to a state agency's interpretation of a state statute, administrative rule, or policy.
Senate Bill 134, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, in plain terms, Senate Bill 134 requires courts to interpret state statutes, rules, or policies independently rather than automatically deferring to a state agency's view. It implements at the state level the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that overruled the 1984 Chevron decision. The Chevron decision, or Chevron deference, was a 1984 Supreme Court ruling that allowed federal agencies to interpret ambiguous laws, which shifted power to unelected officials. In June of 2024, the Supreme Court overturned Chevron deference in a 6-3 decision. The new ruling gives courts more power to interpret statutes independently, restoring balance under the Constitution. Senate Bill 134 specifies that courts can consider the agency's perspective, but the court must decide independently using standard interpretive tools. Importantly, deference to agency interpretation occurs only occasionally in South Dakota right now. Our courts generally review questions giving no deference to agencies on statutory meaning, though case law has been inconsistent at times, with occasional references to agency views or weight given in specific contexts like technical expertise. This bill clarifies and strengthens an independent approach, making it explicit and consistent. This matters because even occasional deference can lead to overreach, agencies stretching laws in ways that the legislature never intended, creating uncertainty for businesses, farmers, and families. South Dakota should align with the Supreme Court decision. Senate Bill 134 codifies de novo review, ensures agencies stay within legislative bounds, and gives citizens a fairer shot when challenging regulations that affect their lives and livelihoods. It doesn't undermine agencies. They have real expertise, but it keeps the power where it belongs, with the people, through the legislature and independent courts. Clear, accountable rules support opportunity and growth. This bill is common sense improvement for South Dakota. It's good for families, good for business, and good for accountable government. I ask for your favorable support of Senate Bill 134.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 134? Further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 134. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Zickman. Foster. No. Larson votes no. Mr. President, we have 31 yeas, 3 nays, 1 excused.
So Senate Bill 134, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
Senate Bill 199, an act to establish a new fund to provide property tax relief.
Senate Bill 199, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Lapke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, today, fellow senators, I bring you Senate Bill 199. Here we are again talking about property taxes. Obviously, that is an enormous issue in the state of South Dakota, and all the best intentions are in place, and it's time to get something done. What Senate Bill 199 would do is it would in fact create a fund that we would then take 25% of the growth of annual revenue and deposit it into this fund. And it's a system that's put in place that over time would build and in the future provide meaningful property tax relief to the citizens of South Dakota. Something visionary like this, if it would have been put in place 10 years ago, we'd be looking at upwards of 20% of property tax relief today. Something that is kind of a good thing here is that you got to start somewhere. We didn't start then, but there's no better time than to start today. Another aspect about this that's different from some of the other proposals out there is this would affect all classes of property. We wouldn't be picking winners and losers. Every South Dakotan in every walk of life would be able to reap some benefits from this. It's a good proposal, it's a good plan, and I'd appreciate your support on 199.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 199? Further remarks? Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for the Prime.
State your question.
How or when would it be decided how those funds get dispersed out?
Senator Lapke, do you wish to respond?
Thank you, Mr. President. So on an annual basis, the legislature would be able to distribute those funds annually. Then the account would be zeroed out, and then in the next year budget setting, the balance would be put back into account as well as the additional 25% from the annual growth in the revenue.
Follow-up question?
Comment. As an appropriator, I appreciate the idea where this is coming from and what it's attempting to do. I'm not ready to walk away from 25% of whatever our increased revenue might be on a year-to-year basis, so I'm going to be a no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 199? Senator Dibert.
Question for the Prime, please.
State your question.
So according to the bill, this goes into a special appropriation. If it's ongoing money, why did you send it? Are you sending it there?
Senator Lepke, do you wish to respond to that question?
Thank you, Mr. President. The reason that we're sending it there because it would be the most efficient mechanism to distribute it on an annual basis was the determination that we made with staff.
Further remarks, Senator Dibert?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. You know, I don't mind the concept, although this did not have any public testimony during the summer study. It was brought in last minute. And that means if we do a special appropriation, it has to have 2/3 every year to disperse that. So I'd rather see it not have to have 2/3 to disperse it because it could lock it down. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Hulse.
I have a question for the Prime.
State your question.
How did you land at the 25% threshold? How was that determined?
Senator Lapke, do you wish to respond?
I guess, just kind of common logic and sense, you don't want to remove too much of the revenue because the state still has its obligations in order to meet, and it seemed like you still have to get a big enough bite at the apple to chisel away because property taxes are an enormous figure to begin with, and it just seemed like a logical place to end up at.
Further remarks, Senator Hulse?
Yeah, I guess I would just say that I respect appropriators immensely, and I don't take lightly to the hundreds of hours that they spend in the appropriations room debating how we should spend our state dollars. And given that this was decided at 25%, it doesn't seem like there was a lot of consideration that went into just picking 25% as a random threshold. It kind of concerns me that we're binding the hands of future appropriators that I have a lot of respect for to pick and choose how we spend that money, as if new dollars are coming in that were supposed to be dedicated to something else, and then a fourth of that goes to something that they weren't really supposed to go to. I don't really understand how that would work or if that's a great idea here. So I'll be opposing this bill.
All right, thank you. Further remarks, Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I am rising in strong support of this bill, and I would say we bind the hands of appropriators all the time. And I guarantee if this had been brought at 50%, the argument would have been made, well, that's too much, or 75%, well, that's too much. So I think the 25% is a reasonable request. As the state grows, and our revenues have been growing very healthily by and large. This year was a little iffy, but by and large, our revenue grows faster than our student enrollment, what we need to go towards state aid education. So why not allow some of that growth to be returned to the homeowners, to the property tax owners? I mean, just one example, a constituent, and this is common across my district, a 38% increase in 1 year in assessed value, a 40% increase in taxes over 4 years. We have to do something. This is a common sense approach to that. 75% is still remaining of new growth to do everything else that we need to do. So I would urge support for this. We need a well-rounded approach to property tax relief. This is just another little piece of the puzzle.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 199. Senator Melhoff.
Thank you. I have a question for the Prime.
State your question.
So in a scenario where there was $100 million in new revenue and perhaps say a $90 million increase in Medicaid expenses, how would we reconcile those two numbers?
Senator Lapke, do you wish to respond to that question?
Well, if you're going to have expenses increase in that scope, you're going to have to allow for that when you're working on balancing the budget to begin with. And basically, if that would require all of the new growth, you're not in fact going to have that growth because the budget will need to be balanced in the first place, as well as you're going to have to, how should I put this? It's a good question. But the budget needs to be balanced originally in the first place. And so you're still going to be able to take that growth, and you're going to have to offset that throughout the appropriations process during session.
Further remarks, Senator Melhoff? No. Further remarks on Senate Bill 199. Senator Carr.
Mr. President, thank you very much. This bill did come out of the summer study. I presented this idea because all I've heard the last few years, the only way to do this is a shift. And I was trying to think of a way that we could do something and come up with an idea that's not a shift, that looks at and treats this as the priority that I hear members of this body say it is, saying property tax relief is the top priority. We have proposals to use the sales tax from the state that would go to our other obligations to pay for property tax relief. And I guess if that's where your head is at, then saying that a fourth of this new money, because this is how the 25% kind of came to be. I hope somebody's listening from Custer Hot Springs or wherever. We got three, the big three, got education, Medicaid providers, state employees, and then property tax relief, because that's what people are saying. That's what we've been hearing across the state. That's what I'm hearing from this legislation, the legislators and their legislation saying this is a top priority. If it's a top priority, then prioritize 25% of our money from growth. If we don't grow, no new money goes into it. So it stays consistent with what we're doing economically in our state. That's where it comes from. It gives you that option. You don't have to take this priority. You can say, you know, we're going to leave it 100%. But then it seems interesting to me if you choose to use sales tax dollars to pay property tax relief at the same time, you're going to reject this idea. This idea takes all revenues into account and does not pick winners and losers and provides relief to all classes of property. So your commercial, your ag, and your owner-occupied. It's an idea I've never heard before. If you believe in prioritizing property tax relief, I think this is a bill that you should consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 199. Senator Davis.
Question for the sponsor.
State your question.
So this is all about new growth, new revenue, new growth. What would have been, like in our budget scenario this year, how much of that 25%, what if that resulted in, had this bill been law?
Senator Lapke, do you wish to respond to that question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Annual growth for this past fiscal year was approximately $30 million, so you would be talking about $7.5 million this year.
Further remarks, Senator Davis?
Yes, I was a no vote in committee, and I'm going to say a no vote on the floor. $7.5 million to go into a fund is not meaningful property tax relief. Everybody wants property tax relief, but it needs to be meaningful, and it actually needs to accomplish something. This would not deliver meaningful property tax relief. $7.5 million dispersed among all classes across the state is not going to make a dent.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 199. Further remarks. Senator Lapke in closing.
Well, I think we have an opportunity here basically to plant a tree. While it's a relatively nominal value right now, it has the potential to bloom and blossom into something pretty meaningful in the future. And you have to be a little bit of forward thinking here too. As well, it's a responsible manner in which to implement it, as you're not going to initially shock the system too much at the onset of it. And the idea behind it is we're going to get money back into South Dakotans' pockets. They're going to be able to take that money and spend it as they see fit, and then we're going to generate more economic activity of that, hopefully, potentially raising our revenues even more into the future, and it can only get better from there.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 199. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, no. Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miskimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Sickman? Hulse? Mr. President, we have 16 yeas, 17 nays.
So Senate Bill
Two
199
excused.
having failed to receive a majority vote of the members-elect, the President declares the bill lost.
All right. I asked the president if we have a tie, do I get to vote twice? Can't wait to see what happens here.
You ready to move on? Senate Bill 204, an act to revise certain criteria for loans from the South Dakota Housing Infrastructure Fund.
Senate Bill 204 was read the second time. Do we have any remarks? Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, Senate Bill 204 addresses one of the biggest issues that we've got across this state, and that is affordability. This lowers the cost of housing, specifically on infrastructure when they're preparing to build new housing in our communities. There's a map that was laid out on your desk earlier today that showed where the Housing Infrastructure Funds program in a short 2-year span, what that has done across our state. You're seeing 85 total projects and 13,000 new units that were built here so South Dakota families could stay here and live here, build their careers here, and raise their families here. Currently, the caps, when you're gonna, the project is capped at 1/3 of the funding. This changes that so that the fundings for the housing infrastructure funds can be used up to 50%. So what's that do? That lowers the cost of the infrastructure that's going in the ground. That lowers the cost of building a new home in your community. We had lots of proponents that joined us in Senate Commerce and Energy to discuss this bill, and no opponents testified against the bill. I stand by for your questions and would appreciate your support.
Thank you. Any further comments on Senate Bill 204? Senator Voida.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, this debate comes down to a simple but fundamental question. What is the proper role of government? Are we here to provide critical, essential services and maintain a fair playing field? Or are we here to start functioning as taxpayer-backed financing arm for projects that government chooses to favor? Because when you look at Senate Bill 204, the policy shift is unmistakable. This isn't just creep, it is a major shift. Current law already allows a significant portion of certain projects to be publicly financed, up to 1/3. That is not insignificant. That is already a major tool. Senate Bill 204 does not just make minor adjustments around the edges. It jumps the allowable finance share from 1/3 to 1/2 of the project. That is a 50% increase in the government-enabled share of private project financing. Removing from government playing a limited supporting role, if you can call 33% limited, to government, or taxpayers, potentially helping carry half of the deal. At what point do we stop and ask, when does assistance become dependence? When does facilitation become substitution for private capital? Because the higher we push the percentage, the clearer the signal we send to the market. Bring us the deals that struggle to pencil out adequately. Bring us the projects that need public leverage to be viable. Bring us the risk that private capital would otherwise approach far more cautiously. That is exactly how mission creep happens. Supporters will say this is about economic development. That's always what it's about, but economic development that depends on steadily increasing taxpayer participation in private financing should give every fiscal conservative in this chamber serious pause. If 1/3 wasn't enough, shouldn't we be asking why? If private lenders will not carry more than 2/3 of the risk, why should taxpayers, directly or indirectly, be comfortable moving to half? Meanwhile, back at home, our constituents are not asking us to expand complex financing tools. They're asking for relief from rising property taxes and the cost of living. They want neutral, broad-based policy. Now, some say we just addressed broad taxpayer concerns with Senate Bill 96. Even if Senate Bill 96 becomes law, that does not mean we should simultaneously expand targeted project-specific financing exposure on the other side of the ledger. I just encourage this chamber to pause and ask, what is the proper role of government? At what point do we say enough is enough? At what point is the other taxpayers footing the burden enough? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments on Senate Bill 204? Senator Colbeck.
Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Colbeck, proceed.
So, I'd just like to clear up a couple of things. So these are loans that are given out, and yes, I understand that if a project isn't viable, then we shouldn't fund that. And a lot of that, having served on the South Dakota Housing Authority Board, I know that these projects are clearly vetted. The problem is that there isn't a lot of opportunity in small towns like Ramona, Alpena, Woonsocket. You can make 1/3 and then have someone else carry the other 75% or 66%, maybe in a larger community, maybe in a Sioux Falls and a Rapid when you can turn over rent. But what is needed to do the half, go up to 50%, is in the smaller communities. When you're building a 4-plex, when you're building a 6-plex or an 8-plex, sometimes those need a little bit more. But again, the question that was asked when we passed this bill was, does the same vetting go on? The South Dakota Housing Authority has an incredibly low recidivism rate, so they don't have a lot of loans that come back for non-pay. In fact, I think it's less than 1%. So all of those protections will still be in place. It's just that we're going to try to get this money out to other places where it hasn't worked, and we can clearly see that it has worked in the handout that was put out. So I would support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Foster. State your question.
Are these loans restricted to the smaller areas that the previous speaker referenced, or are they available at 50% across the state?
Senator Crabtree, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, Mr. President, I would. Great question, Senator. We don't change the percentages that were done a couple of years ago. So you still have the protections that exist to make sure that the rural communities get the first shot at this. An overwhelming portion, I think it's 70-30, is saved for the rural communities. If you take a look at the map to the good senator that asked the question, you can see the areas where this has been focused. Of course, we've seen things happen in Sioux Falls and Rapid City, but we have seen everything from Pine Ridge to Phillip to Kimball to Armour, to Millbank, Lake Norden, all be impacted. And so I think one of the key successes here is these loans have been used across our rural communities to make a real difference.
Senator Foster.
Another question.
State your question.
Is there an income restriction, meaning will this increase affordable housing, or is there no income restriction so it could just subsidize developers?
Senator Crabtree, would you care to answer that question?
I would love to answer that question. So there are no income restrictions. So that wasn't what the original thing was to be. This was about infrastructure. So income restrictions would be on buildings that are built above. But we decided as a body not to go where the buildings are actually being done. So as the previous senator who sat on this board shared earlier, is this are carefully evaluated by the South Dakota Housing and Development Authority to provide that. And what you're seeing, and the proof is the fact that these are being used in those communities, is that they are saving people. They're passing it along as savings when the infrastructure goes in, because that's what it's taken to move those units, especially in our rural communities.
Senator Foster, do you have a follow-up question or further comments? Okay. Are there any further comments on Senate Bill 204? Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know what you are up there, but anyways. This is something that has always traditionally been the burden of the developer. And we are just veering so far to my good seatmate's point about what is a proper role of government. Where does this end? Why not 75%? Why not 100%? And while we're at it, how about when an individual wants to build a new house? How about we pay for their infrastructure or give them a loan at 2%? I mean, everybody would love that. So how about the state just become a banker for everyone and we underwrite everyone, and the taxpayers take on the risk. It's just, it needs to stop. And 1/3 is plenty. We do not need to be increasing this. Vote no, please.
All right, thank you. Any further comments on Senate Bill 204? Seeing none, Senator Crabtree, would you like to finish this out?
I would. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, let me just address some of the things that were brought up that I think take you around a rabbit hole that doesn't actually exist with what we're looking at here today. So let's be clear about what this is. This is infrastructure. We're not financing the sticks that go above. It's infrastructure. Whose responsibility is infrastructure? Government. That's who pays for infrastructure. That's who operates it. That's who maintains it. Okay, so we're not getting outside of the lane where government has been traditionally the leader on. The second thing is, this already exists. This exists right now. These funds are being used. They're making a difference in all of your communities, across all of our districts. I will also say is when you talk about competition, there isn't a lot of people lining up to put infrastructure in the communities that are put on this map, many of those rural ones. They just aren't. So government has taken a lead in that role. There's a number of programs that exist within the state on that. And I can assure you, there aren't a lot of banks that were really fired up about that, or they would have been there. And there were no opponents to this, none. So with that, I would encourage you to make sure that it's affordable to live in your community, affordable for the next generation to buy a house in your community, and support this project.
Thank you. Hearing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final consideration of Senate Bill 204. As your name is called, those in favor say aye, those opposed nay. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dibert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, pardon, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Sickman, Pischke. Mr. President, we have 20 yeas, 13 nays, 2 excused.
Senate Bill 204, having received a majority vote of the members-elect, is hereby declared passed.
Senate Bill 219, an act to require that a state agency consult with the Aeronautics Commission prior to purchasing, transferring, or disposing of a state-owned and operated aircraft.
Senate Bill 219, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks?
Mr. President,
Senator Hone.
I would like to introduce an amendment.
Is it Amendment 219D?
That's correct.
It's been moved and seconded, and has it been distributed or posted?
Yes.
All right, and you'd like to speak to it at this time?
Yes, just briefly. After we had discussion in committee, I was approached by the Board of Regents because SDSU has their education program, and they use flight training airplanes. And so they asked to be added. And then after that, the South Dakota Board of Technical Education asked to be added for their technical universities, which is Lake Area, Mitchell, let's see here, Southeast Tech, and Western Dakota. And right now, the only one out of those universities that has an aviation program is Lake Area. So I'd like to add that amendment and ask for your approval.
All right, thank you. Further remarks on the Hone motion to amend? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. That carries. Further remarks on Senate Bill 219 as amended. Senator Hone?
Sure. This Senate Bill 219, the main intent is really to have our state agencies use the Aeronautics Commission as an advisory council. It's not for them to give the thumbs up or thumbs down. It's just for them to give advice to the state agencies that are looking at a new airplane, a transferring of an airplane, or selling of an aircraft. And so I would ask for your favorable support.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 219? Seeing no further, Senator Voigt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question.
You have a question, did you say?
Yes.
State your question.
Is the CAP organization, Civil Air Patrol, covered under this? Would they be covered?
Senator Hone, do you wish to reply?
From my understanding, I don't believe they would be included in this.
Thank you.
Senator Voigt, any further remarks?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 219? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 219. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Skimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Roll. Mr. President, we have 33 yeas to excused.
So Senate Bill 219, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct.
Mr. President.
Senator Carr.
At this time, I'd ask for a personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to ask the Senate body to stand and join me. If you all stand up, please. It's like the seventh inning stretch. Well, we don't sing happy birthday anymore on the floor, not that you ever did in the Senate, but one of our members whose presence is not just noticed but felt, just the mere presence of Senator Beal, I thought is something that transcends the floor. I think it's noticed by those that are watching. I know he's out there, and today is his birthday. And so what I want us to all do on 3 is say, happy birthday, Arch. Yeah, look at that camera up there. I think that's the one if you want to look at that. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Arch! Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Happy birthday, buddy. We miss you. Thank you.
Very nice, thank you.
Senate Bill 229, an act to require an election to approve the issuance of certain capital outlay certificates, lease purchase contracts, or installment purchase contracts.
Senate Bill 229, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks?
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you. Thank you. You have, fellow senators, I bring to your viewing pleasure SB 229. In South Dakota, capital outlay certificates, lease purchase contracts, or installment purchases are debt instruments issued by school districts to finance capital projects, such as building construction, renovations, or equipment purchases, with a maximum maturity of 20 years. They allow districts to borrow against future collections of funds to meet immediate needs, like a sudden increase in enrollment, a heating system going belly up, a bus breaking down, a kitchen that needs upgrade, etc. As the law is written today, these certificates can be issued without a public vote, unless the principal requested exceeds 1.5% of the taxable value. So if the taxable value of a district is $2 billion, the board can take out a debt of $30 million without a public vote. And by law, a district can continue to take out certificates up to 3%, again, without a single vote. It's important to remember these amounts represent only the principal. Any borrowing plan must also cover interest, and districts can only issue what their capital outlay levy, largely based on student enrollment, can support. In essence, South Dakota school children sitting in our classrooms are at the heart of this financing model, as enrollment determines a district's capacity to invest in projects. There are districts currently with a capital outlay certificate totaling $49 million, almost $50 million. Another one with $27.5 million, and another one with $25.7 million, which represents 2%, 1.5%, and 1.2% respectively. We have districts paying over $1 million in interest per year, and districts paying $4 and $6 million for athletic complexes used only a half a dozen times per year. Again, all of these without the district's patrons' vote. Other districts have used this mechanism to circumvent the will of the people, using certificates after multiple bond voting failures. Again, this is debt, and with the recent headlines about federal educational funding drying up and enrollment declining, a district walking a fine line between solvency and trouble can be just a few students away from having to cut teachers and programs to service that debt. This bill has two scenarios. First, if the repayment or maturity date is less than 10 years, the school can proceed. This allows smaller projects such as remodels and emergencies to move quickly. If the repayment or maturity date is more than 10 years, the issue must have a hearing and be put to the vote of the people. Please vote yes on SB 229. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 229? Senator Smith.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this bill, and because we're standing here again trying to do the job of another form of government. Laws are in place to let school districts do what school districts are supposed to do. I'm going to use my district as an example right now, though. If we would have to do this, our CTE Academy would have gone to a vote of the people. It's a district policy. They maneuvered it quite well, and the people of Sioux Falls and our Sioux Falls School District are benefiting greatly from this project. We didn't have to pay for a vote of the people. Also, the equivalent, I want you to understand when it comes to these numbers. When you hear those really big numbers, yeah, they're big numbers. But a whole new elementary school in Sioux Falls, percentage-wise, is like a new classroom in certain schools, in your district, perhaps. So we shouldn't hamstring the districts from using the tools in their toolbox to do what they do to educate our children. Let the school districts be school districts, and let them do their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 229? Senator Souter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, here we go again. Another example of micromanaging elected school boards. We're creating voter fatigue. How many more issues are we going to put on the ballot? We're going to have to put in a bill for binding costs on these ballots because we've got so many pages coming up. If school boards have to, if the patrons have to vote on it, you're going to delay projects that need to be done because of the voting schedule. I'm going to give you an example of one of the schools in my district. About 20 years ago, about 20 years ago, the high school was condemned, and it was an immediate situation. They had to get the kids out. Once they declared it condemned, no one could go back in there as far as classes went. So what were they going to do? They had a brand new, relatively new school that they could add on to, luckily. And so they could use they couldn't have a bond because that wasn't an option to build this high school. So they used the capital outlay that they had, and they built within their means. They did not raise the mill levy. They had public meetings. Patrons of the district came and listened and expressed their views. They didn't have to go to the ballot box. They came to the school. Everything was transparent. And so we need just, there was not and the project moved forward. Today, this school has a beautiful facility. They've used capital outlay funds for even more construction, for even better updates for a CTE facility. It's been a wonderful use of the money, and they didn't have to go to a vote. They talked to the patrons. They held public meetings, as every school should be. I'm sorry if there are school boards or patrons that don't think their school boards are transparent enough. My suggestions to those patrons are, you run for the school board. If you don't like the way it's run, then run for the school board. That's how a lot of us got elected. If we didn't like the way the state was running things, we got ourselves in there. All right? So what I'm saying is, please, please stop sending the message of mistrust to our school boards with bills like this. As one of our good statesmen said earlier, this is a solution is solving a difficult problem. This is a solution that's creating a difficult problem. Please don't vote for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 229? Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. A question for the sponsor.
State your question.
Is this a precautionary bill, or is this based on a current activity?
Senator Nelson, do you wish to respond to that question?
I would say it's based on a lot of current activity that's going on out there. We've had a number of schools that have gone to the people, asked them to vote on new projects. The people have said no, and then the board turns around and then goes with these capital outlay certificates. That has been a big issue. The other thing, too, with the fact that, talking about a few, well, I'll use that for my closing. I'll just answer his question. Thank you.
Sounds good. Further remarks on, I'm sorry, Senator Perry, did you have any further remarks? No. Further remarks on 229, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I think this bill is simple. All it says that if large dollars are being spent, the people should have a voice. That's simple. We abide by that here, and we have a much more stringent process, and we require 2/3 majority of 105 legislators to spend large dollar amounts. So I think it's simple. I think it makes sense. I would vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 229, Senator Shanefish.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we've seen a few bills like this now, and this is probably at least the third one here. But I do want to thank the prime sponsor for being kind enough to provide a list from the Department of Ed listing all the current capital outlay certificates out there now, and just some of the examples out there. One's a fairly small school district that was one of the more recent ones to consolidate. It's a fairly big number, but they did do some extensive projects recently after that consolidation. There's a number of CTE projects on here, number of athletic facilities, also some art facilities. Some of the places where they built some wellness centers, those are used by the entire community, so a benefit to everyone there. Some of these facilities are used for when you build a gym, you might hold weddings in there, various community events. So I would just ask you to, again, go with local control. I mean, this is, the process in place is working. There's some libraries out there, again, community libraries combined with the city and the school. So again, actually some government efficiency, which we like. So again, I'm opposing the bill. Note that it came out committee 4-3, close vote, shocker, I know, but just vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 229. Further remarks, Senator Dybert.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, there's some information here I think that needs to be clarified. The voters have a voice. They elect the school board members. That's the first step. I think we're confusing our jobs here. If we really want to go on and be on local government, do it. If you want to be in the legislature, legislate. This impacts 148 school districts for a couple instances, so I don't support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 229. Further remarks. Senator Nelson in closing.
Yeah, this is pretty simple. It's the fact that if you have an emergency, or for example, if a school is condemned, you know, let's plan a project that will take 10 years to pay off, and then we'll come back in 10 years and finish that project off. We are talking about tens of millions of dollars being decided by 3 people. Think about our process here in the Capitol. If we want to spend money, what process does that have to go through? Is it one layer? Is it just one body making that decision? Again, in some of these school districts, there are tens of millions of dollars that are being spent, and it's one vote. What I'm proposing here is if its maturity is 10 or more years, let the people be that second layer, that second check all on this money that is being used. The other thing you have to remember here too is this is tying up capital outlay money. If this money is tied up, what happens? I mean, this is debt. What happens if enrollment does drop? What if there is another disaster? Is there going to be money there? So I'm just saying that people need to have a voice. People need to be able to have this information put out there. Again, these projects, 20 years. On that list that the good senator next to me said, there's projects that don't come to maturity till 2045. You're tying up a school district till 2045. I'm going to be 75 years old. Can't even think about that. But, so, just again, think about our process here when we want to spend money. Let's let the people be the second layer when these projects are more than 10 years. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 229. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse,
No.
Jensen, Carr, Kolbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Ms. Gimmons? Nelson? Otten? Perry? Peterson? Pischke? Reed? Roll? Sauter? Shanefish? Smith? Billhauer? Voigt? Voida? Whip? Zickman? Perry? Mr. President, we had 16 yeas, 18 nays, 1 excused.
So Senate Bill 229 having failed to receive a majority vote of the members-elect, the President declares the bill lost.
Senate Bill 239. An act to modify provisions related to the reinvestment payment program and relating to the purchasing of goods and services used by projects approved for the reinstatement payment program.
Senate Bill 239 having had its second reading is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Bottom line up front, this bill is about creating more jobs and better pay for hardworking South Dakotans. Now, this strengthens an existing program. That program is the Reinvestment Payment Program, which has had a long and successful run here in South Dakota. Now, those things have been involved and still will be on everything from manufacturing, agriculture, energy, etc. Applies to all industries. Each project stands on its own, meaning this isn't a blanket exemption. It's not a blanket exemption for one industry, and it's not a blanket exemption at all. It is a high bar that must create jobs, and it must have strong benefits. These things are individually reviewed and worked on. They're applied separately, and it takes 2/3 of the Board of Economic Development to approve these projects in a public meeting. So there is lots of insight that goes in with this. No money is given up front. This is a rebate program. That's the way this works. And it's rebated after the investment is made. So they've got to come here, they've got to invest, they've got to build, they've got to put that money into our communities before that comes back to them. Cities get the sales tax on these. What this really does is give us an option, gives the Governor's Office of Economic Development an option to go in there and negotiate the best deals that put together the best opportunities for new jobs here in South Dakota. It's a critical time, it's a critical tool, and I hope you will be able to support that today. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239? Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of things I want to remind everyone of. Only the legislature can impose a tax. Can an appointed board undermine the will of the legislature? Can the administration just arbitrarily, okay, I like your business, we'll give you up to a 30-year exemption or rebate on the tax, which essentially is an exemption. I ask you to really search your soul. I don't believe this is constitutional. I really don't. I think, you know, we have some exceptions for tax rebates, but to this scale, it undermines the legislature, it undermines this body. And that's what your vote is right now. Is it okay for an appointed board by the administration to undermine the taxing authority of this state? I don't believe it is. I'm an absolute no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239, Senator Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I'll remind the body that just a bit ago we authorized county commissions to impose a tax, so I think that bears mentioning. I'm just going to speak as an ag producer. I know data centers are on everybody's minds and emotions are kind of running high around those, and so let's try to set that aside, this program's good for everything, including things that I can speak to, like ethanol plants and soybean processing and the sort of value-added things that farmers really need so that we can use our products here in the state and to lower the volatility that farmers deal with on the prices for the things that they produce. And so anything that we can do to provide more certainty to the sort of folks that want to develop those, I'm in favor of. I think there's certainly a lot of guardrails in place. This isn't just a blanket exemption. They have to get approval from a number of independent people on a board there. And I'm comfortable with how that program has been working, and so I'm really comfortable, I think, with what this bill does with respect to that. I'm going to urge a yes vote in favor of helping farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239. Senator Howard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this bill. This bill is being presented, if you read the title, as a modification to the reinvestment payment program. But when you look into it, you can easily see that this bill is a backdoor attempt to accomplish what this group, the group presenting the bill, has been trying to do for years, which is deliver massive long-term tax breaks, yes, to large data centers. We can talk about ethanol plants and all these other, but we know what this is really about. Last year, this body had the good judgment to reject SB 177, a proposal that would have handed out up to 25 years of automatic sales tax rebates up to a limit of $500 million. We said no then because it was too much, it was too open-ended, and it was too risky for our taxpayers. But here we are again, same goal but different packaging, and I would say that this bill is 10 times worse. Under this bill, the Board of Economic Development can approve reinvestment payments up to whatever amount the board decides on. $500 million, $1 billion, $2 billion, we don't know. And for a term of up to 30 years. That is substantial. Across the state, we've been debating this, but I'm going to keep saying it. Homeowners and small businesses are demanding real relief from rising property taxes. We spend the entire session talking about how to free up revenue, how to best spend the limited revenue that we have, and provide some property tax relief at the same time. This moves us in the opposite direction. For who? Multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations. Every dollar of state sales tax rebate for decades into the future is a dollar that is not available to us to help us with meaningful property tax relief, or to support state aid to education, or to maintain budget flexibility when the next downturn comes, which it is coming. We are approaching $39 trillion in debt at the federal level. We rely far too heavily on federal dollars. When the crash comes, will we be ready? Or will we be too busy doling out hundreds of millions of tax dollars to these corporations and not be in a position to help our own citizens? We can't keep telling homeowners that relief is our top priority while simultaneously building new pipelines for long-term corporate tax rebates, or really corporate welfare. And it doesn't stop there. This bill, again, lets the board set the minimum project size in policy, not in statute. It layers on top of existing local incentives like TIFs and discretionary formula. It extends benefits to lessees and transferees, and it effectively locks in future upgrade subsidies for years to come. Now, supporters will say this is about competitiveness, but at some point we have to ask, competitive for whom? And at what cost to the taxpayers who don't get to negotiate their tax rate down to zero? Wouldn't we all love to do that? We already had this debate last year. We spoke then, said no. This is 10 times worse. Our focus should be squarely on delivering real tax relief to South Dakotans, not figuring out how to give more and more massive handouts to those who least need it. So again, I would respectfully ask for a no vote on this.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239. Senator Kolbeck.
Well, I'm going to rise in support of this, and I remember last year when we debated this, if you think about how the program works today, someone goes and applies to GOED if they're going to build something large, and then GOED will sign a contract with them, and then the person will spend that money, and then they'll apply for the rebate, and then the board will say yes or no. Remember, we talked about that. If we didn't pass anything last year, nothing will change. Same this year. If we don't pass anything, that will not change. There's no limits, there's no caps, there's no nothing. So why they didn't want to do that last year, they had some reasons. They said, we already have data centers, we already have a program. So the reason that we introduced that bill was because of the risk of doing business in the state of South Dakota. And I think that we can see that there is a risk and things weren't maturing. So this year, this is the solution. So now you would ask, it's called a but for, if not but this rebate, they would not come. So if they want to do that, they can apply, and then they can do that, and then get a permit to get their sales tax back instead of doing it. The reason they want to do it that way is because it costs less money. If you pay sales tax in, somebody has to do that work and then pay sales tax back. But again, remember, if we do not pass this bill, they still have that ability, and they still do that. So the question about whether it's constitutional, non-constitutional, how they do it, how much money they spend, all of that exists today. And I think it was in the press just not too long ago how GOED helped Smithfield. That's what we're talking about. That's what we did. It's a blazing success. And I would ask you to remember, Angus Anson was a person. So was George Mickelson. They flew in an airplane and died for economic development. And what were they doing? Giving out a sales tax exemption to a large corporation in Chicago. I think that's worked out pretty well for us. And I think we need to bring that back. I think we need to understand that there's really only three things we can do. Contractors excise tax, sales and use tax, and then we've got a couple of banking taxes and some franchise taxes, and then property taxes are 100% locally collected and spent. And I know that the pro tem doesn't like this, but these are tools in our toolbox, and this is what we have. We don't have a state income tax. We don't have things like that. So if we want to have meaningful sales or property tax relief, we need a large project of some sort that doesn't fill our schools with kids. Because what's happened in South Dakota is we get people moving here for freedom, and that's great. But then they work from home. And there is no large commercial building paying property tax. If two people move here and they pay $3,000 a year in property taxes, they cost the school district around $15,000. That's $12,000 short. So what we're missing and why our property taxes are going down, because people are starting to work from home. And the real property tax that's gonna come, the real relief, is gonna be a building that pays a lot of property taxes and a lot of sales and use tax and a lot of electricity tax or any other tax. Everybody's favorite tax is the tax that someone else is gonna pay. So let them pay it. And then we can move on to meaningful property tax relief this way. So please support the bill.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239. Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to talk a little bit about other real-world applications, why this program has helped. And I've been quite intimate with several of these projects, as we've done several of them in Brookings during my time as economic development, my time as mayor. And this adds on to the discussion that the senator from Huron talked about of let's not forget where this is used. And one of them we used this in is Bell Brands. And that is using up the milk that we're producing in this state. Now, there's a little consternation around the length of time for a future investment. Well, we as a city did that. We had a contract with them because they said, geez, we're thinking about building the infrastructure so we can double this plant in, I think they said, in 5 to 10 years. And so we said, we put a longer contract out there and said, we will rebate more taxes. Now, this is the city that did it. We will rebate more taxes if you build on. That caused them then to build the infrastructure, and here we are 10 years later, and we're going to double the size of that plant and the jobs that will come along with that. Another time we used this was with 3M. They were going to build the same kind of plant that they had in Brookings outside the United States. And the main reason for that was when it came down, and this is that but for, this is why they were not going to do it, is because it was going to be too expensive here to put their equipment in because of the sales tax on equipment. We're at a disadvantage there. I think it's also important to note that, and I sit on the Economic Development Board as representative of the legislature, the criteria they go through to make sure that this works for us, for our state. And these are the criteria that's in rules. economic impact of primary jobs created or retained by the project, net economic effects of increasing or stabilizing the economy on the community, area, and state, competitive effect of the project on existing businesses. Let's make sure that we're not doing that where we're actually causing another business to suffer from this. The effect of the project on the environmental, health, and safety of the people in the community, area, and state. Compatibility of the project with economic development plans of the area and state. The type of project, infrastructure needed, impact of the project on the property tax base. That's one we're talking about quite a bit. Can we help our tax issues with these growth in something like this? Number of jobs created or retained by the project. All of those are thought about, plus the Economic Development Board can go through and say, here's all the conditions, and if you don't meet these conditions, you're not getting this. And so they can add on conditions to them. And so this has been a very good program. We're talking about expanding it so we can attract in more businesses. So I ask for your support.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239, Senator Miskimmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to stand on behalf of the Mitchell community and tell you how much this program has done for Mitchell. Last year we broke ground and opened a $500 million soybean processing plant just south of Mitchell, on the south edge of Mitchell. But it's not only jobs, but it's value-added agriculture. It creates a marketplace for our soybeans in this state, a better marketplace than they had before. So it's a great asset. It's huge in its energy utilization, but it's a good number of jobs. It's been a great enhancement for our city. It's another use of this program. Please support this bill.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239. Further remarks, Senator Carley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I think we've heard some talk here. This bill is not about property tax. I think we heard a couple other actual property tax bills today. Those were property tax. This is not property tax. This, let's look at what this is. Data centers can come to South Dakota now. They can come here now. In fact, there's many of them across the state that already have moved in just fine, and they're operating. So this is not allowing or disallowing, they can come. This is ultimately for wealthy corporations who don't need the tax credits. They want our weather, they want our land, and they want our space where they can come put these data centers. But they want these credits. They want the money back. Now, I don't fault them for that. They've got shareholders, right? They've got international and national shareholders they want to make money for. I get that. That's fine. But that's at the cost of our citizens. So I ask you to not support this. Support our citizens instead, not the big corporations. Thank you.
Senator Hohn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to give you perspective from a lady in Toronto, South Dakota, and I think you guys probably should have received an email from her. But she's asking you to vote no on Senate Bill 239. If this bill passes, it will have a major impact on our small community in Dual County. Allowing tax breaks for data centers incentivizes these massive companies to do whatever it takes to force their way into our area. Local control is important, but sometimes local governments don't have the budget to fight back against the millions of dollars at the disposal of large corporations, even when they believe it's a bad idea for their citizens. Our county is in that situation. We've heard multiple times that our officials can't say no because, quote, we'll get sued, end quote. That is no longer local control. That's manipulation and coercion. And it's one of the main reasons rural areas are targeted for these types of projects. If other states want to incentivize data centers, that's totally fine. That doesn't mean we have to. There are a lot of other better opportunities out there, ones that actually would benefit rural South Dakota. Please vote no on 239.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239. Senator Lapke.
Thank you, Mr. President. When an issue like this arises, I kind of always look at, what the benefit could be for the people of South Dakota that live across the state. And I know, when we get into sales tax, we already have existing exemptions that are utilized. But as my experience on appropriations has taught me, sales tax revenue really is the lifeblood of our state government. And we really can't afford to hand out any more exemptions of that nature. And I know that's not what this bill proposes to do, but in essence, that's what's happening. Because you've got to look at a lot of the other surrounding states that offer incentivization in this fashion. They all have income taxes, something that I'm adamantly opposed to happening in the state of South Dakota, and I just don't want to see that ever come to fruition here. We also have to take into account, I believe it to be a little bit disingenuous, the argument of they will not come to South Dakota if they don't have this incentive. We have such an immense electrical requirement on these. They're very geographically limited where they can be placed just due to accessibility and availability of electricity on the grid. So I don't find that argument to hold water. Again, like I said, you got to look at the benefit of what it's going to do for South Dakotans, and I'd be more in favor of giving the South Dakotans a sales tax exemption, but we know that's not possible with the way that our government runs. And so I think that if we want to do business in South Dakota, let's just do it in the manner that we all do today.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239? Further remarks, Senator Voigt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I look at this, there's a statement that defines what these facilities are, have been laid out. The problem that I have is not inclusive. States the facilities and ends with a conjunctive, and facilities defined by GOED. What are those facilities? We don't know what they are. Facilities listed at the beginning of that statement, they've identified several of those facilities 20 years ago didn't exist. They're a priority now. My concern is, what does facilities defined by GOED? That's the entity that's going to define these facilities that we're going to accept. We're not talking about a few thousand dollars. We're talking about millions of dollars, and GOED's going to define what they are and impact the residents of this state. I don't support this.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239? Further remarks, Senator Perry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 239A is a really interesting bill. I did the second when we were in State Affairs to move it to the floor, and I said it was definitely worth our consideration. I've been a strong supporter of the PUC, the GOED, the governor, the regions, workforce development, and infrastructure, so I'm for economic development. However, when this first came around, we were talking about North Dakota with 35 years of no tax, and then it went to 50 years, or went to 100 years, then it was looking at 50, and now it landed on 30 years. And GOED, I have a lot of confidence in them, but I have people that have been contacting me that don't have the same confidence. And so what I've promised 8 years ago when I first ran, I said, I will listen to all sides, the good, the bad, the ugly, the short, the tall, whatever. But then after I do that, these are contacts that I receive from district people, from constituents in this area and throughout the state. And I got these this morning. This isn't like something I got over the last 3 weeks. I got these in the last 3 hours. So here's what I'm saying on this, is I'm going to be a no Not because I have anything against data centers or anything like that. It's because my people and your people are saying this is not a good idea. If we work for the people, under God, the people rule. And I can tell you this, under the people and under God, I rule. Thank you.
Just don't tell your wife that. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing I'd like to do when I go back to District 18 is to head to one of the local coffee hangouts with the gentleman at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 to 8. And one of the times I was there, one of the subjects was this particular topic is tax breaks, sales tax breaks for these things. And one gentleman said to me, "Why is it so hard for you guys to give me a tax break," meaning property, "but it's so easy to turn around and give these big guys a tax break?" And I said to him, I said, "Because it's going to be good for you in the long run." And the guy looked at me and he says, "I'm going to be dead by the time it's good for me." And I said, yeah, looking at him, yeah, he was probably right. But that's the key here. You know, driving here this morning, I see all these vehicles on the road, these guys going to work, because it was 6 o'clock in the morning when I took off this morning. And the people on the road with me were the guys going to work. I'm assuming factory workers, plumbers, whoever, everybody who has a white truck like mine with a ladder on it. And that's the key. Where's their tax break? And the other thing, too, that these gentlemen tell me, too, it's not just tax breaks that you're handing out to somebody here in South Dakota or even somebody in the United States. A lot of these tax breaks are for foreign entities. And I think the vast majority of these gentlemen that morning, it's like, where are our tax breaks? Where are you taking care of us here in District 18 and watching out for us? And so that's why I'm going to be a no. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239. Senator Melhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I've been sitting back here adding up all the money that we got by not approving the tax incentive last year. And it didn't take me long because we got zero. Because if you don't incentivize growth, you get nothing. I like to quote one of my favorite artists, Billy Preston, often referred to as the fifth Beatle. Nothing from nothing is nothing, and that's what we got in South Dakota if we continue to be anti-economic development. And I think that's what we have here. You know, we hand out a lot of tax exemptions. Our farming community gets tons of them. Now, am I suggesting that we take those away for farm fuel, feed, fertilizer, services? My brother's a spray pump pilot. He doesn't charge sales tax. No, because agriculture is an important industry to South Dakota, extremely important. But it doesn't really support our small towns anymore. When I grew up in Eureka, South Dakota, Saturday nights, that place was hopping. All the farmers were in town. There were 4 implement dealers, 4 car dealers, 3 grocery stores. That's not what it's like anymore. There's not a lot of opportunity for a small town like Eureka. No factory is going to come and build there because there's not 200 people to fill jobs. But they might be able to attract a data center that could provide some jobs, provide a wide tax base to help them save their school, to provide jobs for an HVAC guy, various other trades in the community, plumbers, welders, technicians. So when we do economic development, we should be, and I said this last year, and I stole it from Lamar Alexander, former governor, I think, of South Carolina. Is that right?
Tennessee.
Tennessee, thank you, sir. But he used to talk about economic development by keeping an eye on the spigot and don't pay so much attention to the drain. Because as long as you're bringing more money in than you're sending down, you're going to be a winner. And that's what economic development is designed to do, to bring stimulus, to stimulate the economy, to bring investment, to bring people in, to invest billions of dollars in the state of South Dakota, that at the end of the day, when you incentivize them to come, you put more money into the economy, you create more opportunity for our young people, you create more tax relief for our property taxpayers. This is a good program. It should be expanded. We should support this bill. We should support development in South Dakota. And I'd urge your support, yes, on this one.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239, Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I just keep thinking as we're talking about the good senator from Brown, Day, Marshall, and Roberts. He brought a bill earlier this session, and it was specific to Lead, South Dakota. And I keep thinking about how this mining industry came into the state of South Dakota and literally, first of all, built that little community. But the state of South Dakota, back in the day, the legislative body, they looked at what was coming out of the ground and they said, you know what? You are going to make a ton of money by taking things from our state. And the state of South Dakota levied taxes on them in like 3 or 4 different ways. And we have gotten millions upon millions upon millions of dollars because of that. They were wise. What wisdom. They didn't back down and say, oh no, everybody's going to leave our state. No one's going to dig up our gold. They said, you know what? You're taking something from us. What can we give back to the citizens? And they have given us millions upon millions of dollars. And so when we went to consider levying another tax on them, the whole community came out. They were all in taxation. They filled the room. They plugged up the Zoom, and they said, this was the citizens. They said, please don't tax them anymore. Please don't tax them anymore. They are deeply integrated into the very fiber of our community. What I see on the other side, when we give out tons and tons of money, these people they don't care. They come in, they do what they want to do, what's best for their stakeholders, good for them, I don't blame them. And when it gets tough, they're gone. In a minute, they're out. Sometimes in the dark of night, and I believe that just happened in a little community not very long ago, right before session. And the whole community is saying, we don't know what we're going to do now. I'm just saying these people are coming and they are getting something from us. They are taking things from us, therefore they need us. So we should tax them, not give them free money, quite honestly. We should be wise like the legislators were back in the day. We need more of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239, Senator Dybert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, when lead is mentioned, I have to stand. The significant difference between mining and what we're talking about today is the gold is only in one place. That's it. You're not mining gold in North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa. The gold is one place. I'll also say that the gold industry was the best thing that happened to the people that lived in Lead. They provided them the water system that they still have today. They provided a hospital, eye doctor, free medical for their employees. They created the timber industry where sale number 1 was in the Black Hills National Forest. They helped manage the forest. They also preserved water and preserved Spearfish Canyon. So to compare them with what you're talking about today is very unfair. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239, Senator Roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I guess just because
obviously I was mentioned to some capacity in a prior bill. I guess I just wanted to point out that the first 43 years that our gold was mined in the state, it was not taxed.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239, Senator Voida?
Well, everybody else has spoke. I think I'm going to stand up and speak now.
Not quite.
So there was some comments made about if we don't incentivize businesses, they're not going to come here, we're not going to see growth. I just want to push back on that a little bit because, you know, one of the comments about, well, ag doesn't really support small town South Dakota anymore. Why is that? Why doesn't ag support small town South Dakota to the extent that it used to? Because of government. Because government handouts have incentivized the growth and consolidation of ag. They have pushed out small family businesses because we have picked winners and losers. This is exactly what this bill is doing. Vote no.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239? Senator Carr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can't miss a chance to also speak knowing I won't change a single vote here. This is wonderful.
Oh, don't sell yourself short.
I still got you. Potentially. I'm now speaking to you, Mr. President. I've started a few businesses, and I remember my first one I started, I was in college, and I went to the different economic development groups that existed at the time, and they said, oh, you got a great idea. I said, thanks, I'm literally looking for some help, some startup, you know, whatever I can get. I need some legal help, you know, I need some accounting help. What can I get? They said, well, you know, are you a female? I said, no. And they said, well, are you Native American? Nope. Are you a minority? Nope. We go through this laundry list of things, and it turns out there was no help for me. I'm still here, though. And I still was able to start those businesses to some extent, but it was a longer process. And what I realized early on is, you know, when you pick those winners and losers, say we're going to help this group or these people, and it has a serious impact on businesses that we do have here. When you talk about who we are as South Dakotans and how we do business here, I think we have to think about the principles that we operate on and how we treat all business owners. I've been part of other companies that were much larger, and I guess we didn't have the lobbyists or the lawyers to go state to state and set precedent in other states and then also come to our state and effect this change to get a carve-out for us. When I hear things like we should focus on the spigot and not the drain, I think of a Ponzi scheme that we got to keep bringing in enough money to cover what we're losing. And what are we losing in these situations when you pick winners and losers? You're picking, the folks that are losing are those that aren't getting any of these incentives to compete with these other businesses who now are arbitrarily picking, saying, you, case by case, you get this money, you get this exemption, you get this land deal. Oh, and then we ask, well, how much money are you going to give us for this? So now our principles are for sale. Starts to feel like some sort of state-sanctioned racketeering. I just want to think about and ask you to think about who we are, how we do business, and do we care about the other businesses that don't have access to these exemptions? And as we go forward, how we're going to pick those winners and losers and say, yeah, maybe you could. Nope, I don't think so. Sorry. Good luck. It's about fairness. It's about who we are in South Dakota.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 239? Senator Melhoff.
I'd like to yield any remaining time I have to the prime.
Senator Crabtree in closing.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mr. President. You know, I appreciate a lively debate, and that's what we sure had here today about how we look at these things. There's a few things I really, really want to clean up. You know, I know we just talked about this a little bit, but sales tax exemptions in South Dakota. We have 4 pages of them. They total about $1.4 billion. So what we're talking about today is really input costs, just like what we see for ag exemptions. You know, another thing that was brought up is what neighboring states have for tax policy. Go look at this part right here. We have sales tax on electricity and others do not. That's a key difference between us and some of the neighbors when we're looking at those pieces overall. But I want to drive what the important bottom line is overall here, that this creates real jobs and real property tax relief. You know, when you look at large projects, this is every industry too. The debate focused in on one particular industry, but this is all industries. Okay, this is all industries that apply. And when you build those, you create a downward pressure on every other taxpayer. That's a fact. If we want to actually make a difference when it comes to property tax relief, you know, we've talked a lot about that. But to really do that, we have got to also build our way out of that. We have to make a bigger base, one that shoulders more of that burden instead of the individuals every single time. And saying no to these projects clearly isn't working. So everybody says, oh, they're coming anyway. If they were coming here, they'd be here. They haven't showed up. This isn't a new discussion. This discussion's been going on for 6 years, and they haven't showed up. And you know what's happened in that time? We've had folks talk about how they need better jobs. They need more money in their pockets back at home. We look at a state budget that's broke. We're celebrating maybe giving 1% to the big three, maybe 1% to our teachers. And we're telling these guys, hey, we don't want you to pay in at all. We don't want you to be part of this fabric. We don't want to match what 41 other states do. We are a high-tax state when it comes to this. We pride ourselves on being a low-tax state. We pride ourselves on being open for business, but this does not make us open for business. What we can do today is make a change right now, and we can join those. We can be competitive on the tax piece, and we're not talking about just competing with our neighbors. We're talking about competing globally. And you know who works at these facilities? It's the guys with the ladders on the trucks that we were talking about. It's our HVAC technicians, it's our electricians, it's our plumbers, it's our pipe fitters. That's who works in this. It's our kids. And we keep standing around saying, no, we don't want to be a part of that economy. No, we don't want to compete with 41 other states that are doing this. No, we don't want to compete with China. We'd rather just pack up and hope it passes over. But it hasn't. And it's kicking the tail of every town that's around here. You can see it when you drive through them. And you know what? I've heard from mayors all around this state. They're saying, hey, we've got to start talking about what it takes to build a stronger economy. I mean, the Aberdeen mayor was right here just a month ago in December, talking about the positive impact bigger projects were having north of them, and they were getting a little bit of the overflow. Well, why wouldn't we want all of South Dakota to have a chance to win? I don't know why we wouldn't want that. And you know what? We've got a chance to win with guardrails in place. Reminder, this is negotiated out on each individual project for all industries with 2/3 of a board that selects those in an open meeting. This is far from being some backroom deal. This is about building opportunities for our future here. This is about putting more money back in people's pockets. I'm talking hardworking South Dakotans, the ones with the ladders on the trucks and the ones with the hammers on the hips. And I'm telling you, if we don't get with it, we're going to be left behind. We're going to be driving to go see our kids and our grandkids in some big city that did say yes. So please, say yes today. Let's continue the conversation, and let's build a stronger South Dakota.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 239. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal, excused. Blanc? Carly? Crabtree? Davis? Dibert? Duhamel? Foster? Grove? Hone? Howard? Hulse? Jensen? Carr? Kolbeck. Lapke. Larson. Marty. Melhoff. Miss Gimmons. Nelson. Otten. Perry. Peterson. Pischke, excused. Reed. Roll. Sauter. Shanefish. Smith. Vilhauer. Voigt. Voida. Whip. Sickman. Mr. President, we have 17 yeas, 16 nays, 2 excused.
So Senate Bill 239 having failed to receive an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill lost. Intent to reconsider by Senator Crabtree has been noted.
Senate Bill 193. As a reminder, this is an act to clarify the definition of backup electric generation.
Senate Bill 193, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move Amendment C as in Charlie.
Is there a second? Amendment C has been moved and seconded, and has it been distributed or posted?
I believe it's been posted.
And you would like to speak to it at this time?
I would.
Go ahead.
Amendment C addresses the concerns that were heard on the floor the other day. This clarifies that the PUC has oversight if the backup gen is connected back into the grid. And so I think that was one of the major discussions that we had the other day, and I would appreciate your yes vote on that amendment.
Further remarks on the motion to amend? Senator Hohn?
Thank you, Mr. President. So what Amendment C is doing is it's wanting to permit after the facility is built. So basically, it's a modified facility. And what that's doing, it's making it easier to game the system. Build your generator and then ask to interconnect. Who wouldn't want to do that? How crazy is that? Please vote no.
Further remarks on the motion to amend? Senator Kolbeck.
I hope you smote the amendment because that is not what it does. It says it is backup generation, and if it ever becomes anything other than that, they would have to go in to get a permit. So that is not circumventing the system. Please vote yes.
Further remarks on the amendment? All right, this is a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. That carries. We are back on the bill, Senate Bill 193. Senator Crabtree.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments there. So let's just go back to what this is talking about. This is talking about something that is not connected to the grid. This is also backup generation that already has federal, local, and state oversight. So what is actually happening here is that an individual business is likely to have their own backup. For whatever reason, they are building their own backup. Think industrial projects. Currently, this goes through a PUC hearing, pushing unnecessary costs onto those businesses. We just talked about being a business-friendly state. They already have time limits on those, noise regulations, all kinds of parameters that are scheduled around them. So we are one of only a few states that have this over-regulation. Neighboring states like North Dakota, Wyoming, and Texas do not require the state-level siting. This is an unnecessary overreach when it comes to regulation. Again, state, local, federal, already regulated. No need for another blanket on top of that regulation. This is a good opportunity for you to go home and say that we cut regulation and made things more business-friendly.
Further remarks on Senate Bill 193? Further remarks? Senator Carr.
Well, like I said before, I trust my PUC. I've always had a good relationship. Everything they've told me, I typically, I've never found that they've misled me in any way, shape, or form, hid the ball, given me partial or half-truths. This is my conversation with them, and they've seen the amendments and say that this is still something that they would be against. If this passes, the South Dakota legislature says it's okay to allow 100 megawatt or greater natural gas or nuclear plant and not go through the regulatory process the PUC places on generation plants. So adjacent landowners would have some protection. Local governments, they don't hire experts to ensure non-participating landowners are not impacted by such things as noise, health, safety, environmental impacts. In past discussions of this bill, we've heard that not all counties have planning or zoning. In those counties that don't, we'd be saying a 200 megawatt power plant needs no permit or oversight. I don't think this amendment does anything to prevent a facility from interconnecting. The way it's worded is redundant to the wording in the definition. You know, the PUC raised several concerns. I don't think any of them have been addressed or mediated by this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 193. Senator Roll.
Mr. President, pursuant to 2-2, I would make a motion to call all members in the Capitol, do a call of the House for all members in the Capitol.
Second.
Just a moment. Senator Roll has moved and it has been seconded for a call of the House, which is Joint Rule 2-2. The rule reads, 1/6 of the members of either House may compel the attendance of absent members by ordering a call of the House of which they are members, but a call of the House may not be made after voting on the bill commences, which it has not. So it takes 1/6 of the members elect. Is he supported? He is.
The Sergeant at Arms.
Would the Sergeant at Arms see if you can locate Senator Pischke? If you're interested, Rule 2-3 is the procedure after call of the House. You can take a moment to read that to yourselves. Rule 2-3 says, when a call of the House is ordered, the doors must be closed. Someone could go ahead and close the doors. And absentees noted, no member may leave the room until permission is given by the presiding officer of the floor session, the Sergeant at Arms report is received and acted upon, or the House is adjourned. Until the Sergeant at Arms report is received, proceedings under the call may not be suspended except by 2/3 of the members present.
case anyone is wondering, we are at ease. So Malheur test is excused, but also
I don't see Senator Peterson. Is she around? Okay.
so is that where we were, was the amendment? Well, and it was, they voted and ruled that the yeas.
We'll resume as soon as Senator Peterson is back. come back into order, and we are still on consideration of final passage of Senate Bill 193. Are there any further remarks? Seeing none, Senator, oh, I'm sorry. And you spoke on, yes, Senator Colbeck.
Senator Senate Bill 193, just make sure that's where we're at. Yes, okay. So I guess I would ask the question, why? Why is it okay in North Dakota to not permit backup generation? Backup generation is different. Yesterday we were talking about interconnection. That was the argument. Now today it's nuclear power plants. Nuclear power plant would be permitted by NERC, the National Nuclear Energy Regulatory Commission. So we need to look at what we're doing. It's okay in North Dakota not to do this. They have Southwest Power Pool, they have MISO, so if you're going to interconnect into either of those, they're already doing it in North Dakota. If you're going to interconnect into the system, that's a 2-year process. You're going to interconnect out of anywhere. So if you're going to build this much generation, 100 megawatts of generation, which you're going to have to jump through all of the local hoops, 60 dB on a light industrial, 60 dB. A refrigerator is 45. You're going to run 100 megawatts, and then you're going to be breaking a bunch of rules? I don't think so. That's why they do it different in other states. That's why they don't permit generation in other states. So we can look at the grid, we can look at the MISO grid, which is on the eastern side of the state, and if we build 100 megawatts of generation, this bill says that it's backup, you go through this set of regulations over here off of the grid, but if you're going to get onto the grid, then you're going to go through this. And you ever become not backup generations, then you're going to do that. That's what we're talking about, and it's good enough in other states. It should be good enough here. South Dakota used to be a low regulation state. We can get back to that. We can do that, and we can do what North Dakota does very easily. That's just my opinion. I hope you'll vote yes on 193.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 193? Further remarks? Senator Crabtree in closing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President and Senators. There was a little bit of a discussion about how this still didn't require what the argument was on the floor about the PUC and a permit. But if you look at Section 2, it clearly states a backup electric generation facility may not be interconnected to the bulk electric system without first obtaining a permit under this chapter. So you're going to have to go through the permitting process. You're going to have PUC oversee this if you want to connect it. Otherwise, if you're an individual business, let the individual business run its own thing without more government overreach. I mean, that's what most of us, talk about all the time when we go home. Here's a chance to do that and match those around us that do it this way. North Dakota, Wyoming, Texas. It's just another burdensome piece if we don't do this. So with that, please vote yes.
Senator Carley.
Yeah, parliamentary inquiry, whether the call of the House requires one of our missing members that's not here.
The call of the House procedure, Rule 2.3, allows the presiding officer to excuse a member, which I have, in regard to Senator Beal, who obviously cannot be here. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 193. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carley, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Pischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman. Pischke. Mr. President, we have 17 yeas, 17 nays.
So Senate Bill 193 having failed to receive an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill lost. Senator Crabtree's intent to reconsider has been noted. I should mention at this time that I received the report of the Sergeant at Arms as to the call of the House, and I consider that matter to be resolved. Senator Voida.
Parliamentary inquiry, wasn't that already an intent to reconsider vote?
My understanding of the rules is that if a bill is amended on being reconsidered, that it can again be reconsidered because it's considered to be a new question. Thank you.
Mr. President, another parliamentary inquiry. Doesn't an additional reconsideration require unanimous vote of the body?
Again, my ruling is that when a bill has failed and is reconsidered and then comes up again and is amended, that is considered a new question because now you are voting for a different bill, an amended bill. And so that was the question, and now that can be reconsidered. That is my interpretation of the rules.
Senate Bill 76, an act to authorize loans from the South Dakota Housing Infrastructure Fund for airport infrastructure.
Senate Bill 76, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Senator Crabtree.
Mr. President, thank you. Folks, I'd like to move 76B.
He has moved 76B, and that has been seconded. And has it been posted?
It has.
And you would like to speak to it at this time?
I would. Fellow senators, there is an amendment that was placed. The prior amendment allowed for the funds to come from housing infrastructure funds and to be paid back into that revolving loan. What 76B does is continue that, but instead of a 0% loan, charges a 2% loan fee.
Thank you. Further remarks on the amendment? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Amendment carries. We're back on the bill, Senate Bill 76. Senator Crabtree.
Thank you, Mr. President and fellow senators. This is a revolving loan funds from the housing infrastructure funds that are going out to support our airports, both in Rapid City and in Sioux Falls. $15 million of that loan fund is designated for Rapid City, with another $15 million designated for Sioux Falls. Both of them have federal and city funding that go along with them. And really, we're talking about using some state funds in a revolving loan fund to support critical infrastructure. We're matching both local and feds to make sure that our infrastructure is strong. That's good opportunities for the people of South Dakota and good opportunities as for our businesses as well. Please support the bill as amended.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 76? Further remarks. Senator Perry.
Question for the sponsor.
State your question.
You know, I understand the difference between 0 and 2%, but have you talked to both of those facilities to see that that's acceptable to them?
Senator Crabtree, do you wish to respond to that question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Of course, there's people that are in the lobbies that are working on what percentage that should be, and I think if you really asked them, they'd say we want it to be grant money, not loan money, and if we want loan money, we want 0% and not 2%. However, that's up to this body. to decide on that. And I think, you know, from general discussions with many of the senators that are in this room right now, 2% was agreed upon because that's what the Housing Infrastructure Funds has for its interest rates. And so with that said, I think 2% money in today's market is pretty good. I'd ask some of my fellow businessmen or even a few of our ag folks if they're getting 2% loans to do any of their projects. Probably not is going to be the answer. So I would appreciate your support for this.
Thank you. Further remarks on, I'm sorry, Senator Perry, did you have further comments?
That's a good answer, and my question, though, remains the same. Have we visited with Sioux Falls or Rapid City to say, I know before we were going to give you 0%, and now you're going to pay 2%. Have they agreed to that? Because we're going to make a decision now based upon that, and I'd just like to know that that's the decision we should be making or shouldn't.
Mr. President.
Sir Crabtree, you want to take a run at that?
I think that question would have been better asked when we were debating whether it was going to be 0% or 2% when the amendment went on. Today we've got 2%, so we're past that. And today it's if they want the loan right now, it'd be at 2%. That's where our discussion is at today. So we've got an opportunity to move forward at that, or somebody can make another amendment.
All right, further remarks, Senator Perry? No. Further remarks on Senate Bill 76, Senator Grove.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for the Prime.
State your question.
Thank you. Can you tell me, is this the funding that we originally had for, that was earmarked for housing?
Senator Crabtree, do you wish to respond to that question?
Yes, I would. Yes.
Further remarks, Senator Grove.
Just a comment. I think that we've talked a lot about property taxes today. We've talked a lot about the citizens of South Dakota are basically swimming in debt when it comes to that. I know that there was I believe there's a bill for property tax using this exact funding to put back in the hands of South Dakotans. And so I don't quite understand why we're taking housing funding and putting it towards airports when we have a very serious situation regarding property tax. I think that it would be better spent on South Dakotans and putting money in their hands so they can keep their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks, Senator Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not going to lie, I had heartburn on this bill originally because we were taking money out of the housing fund and not using it for housing. What changed for me, though, was when we did it as a revolving loan, because it's a revolving loan fund, correct? And we're taking money out and we're putting it back in. Now, I don't know if the airports would have wanted 0. I bet they would. But I also know if we offer 2%, it's better than they can get anywhere else. And so I don't know if that question really, I'd rather have a loan at 0%, sure. I think we all would. But right now we're offering 2. I would have liked it at 0, it's at 2. And I understand that. But let's think of what this does, okay? Okay, it's another opportunity to bring people into our state. It's another opportunity to have people fly out of our state rather than drive to Denver, rather than drive to Omaha, rather than drive to Minneapolis to take these flights. When we increase our carriers in our state, we have more opportunity, okay? And those people that come here spend a lot of money, all right? Hunting's huge for a lot of us here, right? Where do they get, how do they get here? Have you ever been to the airports when they come here? Huh? They're packed with people. Those people bring money and they're ready to spend their money, all right? Let's help our airports on both sides of the state. The money stays in housing. I like that now. Let's help both sides of our state. Thanks.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 76, Senator Vilhauer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to echo the comments of the prior speaker, but I also make a comment. It's been said that 98% of our air traffic flows through Rapid City and Sioux Falls. I don't dispute that number. I live in Watertown, 100 miles from Sioux Falls, 350 miles from Rapid City, but I am wholly in support of this. Whatever is good for our state, wherever it may be, wherever part of the state, the whole state reaps benefits from that, so I am strongly in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 76, Senator Zickman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, those of us that have used these two airports, you can understand why what is happening at each of those airports. They're expanding. Sioux Falls is expanding. It's just amazing what they have done there. Rapid City, you got the B-21s coming in with more people coming in. And so I'm in support of this now that we've changed it from keeping it where it is, bringing it back where we loaned it from, instead of government putting it over on the GOED. We're assured, I think, that that money plus the 2% is going to come back into that fund. And so, Mr. Chair, I encourage the body to pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 76? Does any senator wish to speak before Senator Perry speaks a second time? Senator Perry.
Very short. I was for this in committee, and I'm for it now.
Thank you. Further remarks? Senator Melhoff.
I'd like to defer my time to the prime.
All right, Senator Crabtree in closing.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, senators, for the lively debate again today. Again, we're talking critical infrastructure funds. We're not talking about new dollars. We have these dollars. They're set aside. They are for infrastructure. We're going to use them for critical infrastructure at the airports, both on the west side and on the east side. It's good for the people of South Dakota. It's good for business here, and it puts that money back to work, and it comes right back to housing, so we can go right back out, continue to make a difference in our rural communities and our bigger cities. With that, please consider voting yes.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the Senate is final passage of Senate Bill 76. When your name is called, those in favor vote aye, those opposed nay. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senators Beal excused, Blanc, Carly, Crabtree, Davis, Dybert, Duhamel, Foster, excused, Grove, Hone, Howard, Hulse, Jensen, Carr, Colbeck, Lapke, Larson, Marty, Melhoff, Miss Gimmons, Nelson, Otten, Perry, Peterson, Fischke, Reed, Roll, Sauter, Shanefish, Smith, Vilhauer, Voigt, Voida, Whip, Zickman, Melhoff. Mr. President, we have 22 yeas, 11 nays, 2 excused.
So Senate Bill 76, having received an affirmative vote of a majority of the members elect, the President declares the bill passed. Are there any questions on the title? Seeing none, it's deemed correct. There being no objection, the Senate will revert to order of business number 8, motions and resolutions.
Senator Melhoff moves that the balance of the calendar, including House Bills 1041 and 1056, be deferred to Tuesday, February 24th, the 28th day.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. The President is in doubt. If you support the motion, stand. This is to defer the balance of the calendar. Motion carries. The Constitution of South Dakota requires that Bills be signed in open session and have their title read, and at this time, I have 10 bills to sign. This time, the President is signing Senate Bill 165, an act to revise certain provisions pertaining to municipal government. This time, the President is signing Senate Bill 129, an act to update references in certain statutes to the 2024 Standard Building Codes. At this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 116, an act to make an appropriation for the design and construction of an indoor athletics facility at Dakota State University and to declare an emergency. At this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 75, an act to amend the type of entities eligible to participate in the Cybersecurity Services Initiative. At this time, the President is signing Senate Bill 72, an act to extend the time for reverting monies appropriated for the modernization of the state's enterprise resource planning systems. Now the President is signing Senate Bill 55, an act to make an appropriation for the payment of extraordinary litigation expenses and to declare an emergency. The President is signing Senate Bill 27, an act to revise the description of certain highways included in the state trunk highway system. And the President is signing Senate Bill 20, an act to make an appropriation for tax refunds for elderly persons and persons with a disability and to declare an emergency. Now the President is signing House Bill 1018, an act to amend the reversion date for monies appropriated to the Department of Education to improve and renovate the Cultural Heritage Center. Finally, the President is signing House Bill 1227, an act to increase the annual fee required of an owner of an electric motor vehicle. Announcements. Senator Jensen.
Thank you. Ag and Natural Resources, 10 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you.
Senator Schoenfish. Shane Fish.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll answer to anything. Senate Education will meet tomorrow at 8:15. We'll have 4 executive appointments and 1 bill.
Senator Lapke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appropriations will have work groups starting at 8 in the morning, and then we'll go into joint at 9:30.
Senator Colbeck.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We have Senate taxation tomorrow morning, 7:45, 5 bills.
I do have one other announcement I've been asked to make relating to the U.S., the America 250. Tomorrow at 12:30, every state, all 50 states, have a copy of the Liberty Bell. I don't know if you knew that, but our copy is across the street from the front of the Capitol, in front of the Soldier Sailor Building, and we're going to be ringing it tomorrow at 12:30 to celebrate the America 250. I don't know who actually gets to ring the bell. Maybe Senator Reed knows. Maybe. But that is the plan, so you can be there if you like. Any other announcements? Senator Perry.
Yes, tomorrow at 7 o'clock, we will have the Capitol Commission at the big Governor's Conference Room, and we hope you all can make it.
Maybe say a prayer for the presiding officer. Anybody else?
Senator Nelson moves that the Senate do now adjourn.
That has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.
you.